Welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I started an eco conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, Oxford Clay, I don't just make pottery, I also make books and courses for other potters who want to be more environmentally friendly in their pottery making. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Tomlinson, and thank you so much for joining me today on the second episode of the series about making a raw glazed mug on the potter's wheel. So, in today's episode, we're actually going to be making the mug on the potter's wheel. So, we're covering centering the clay, like opening the clay out on the potter's wheel, bringing the clay up, and then we're going to be talking about like shaping the mug. To the shape that we want for our mug, for our lovely mug. So yeah, so let's get on with the episode. And if at any point you're thinking, oh, I want to see how this is done, you can watch the YouTube version of it. The link will just be in the show notes. And if you're, if any point you're listening on the podcast, you think, I want to see this, then yeah, just click on the link in the show notes and you can watch the video version. So let's get on with the episode. Okay, so let's get started in terms of actually making the pot. Okay, so before I get started, I've just noticed my wheel is actually quite dirty. So I'm just going to go get a spoon. I'm sorry, a sponge. Okay, so we've got a sponge and we'll see how this works. It's actually quite tricky being attached with a headset to a computer to then make a pot on the wheel. Anyway, let's just give it a go. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so right, so my wheel. You should never see a wheel like this because your wheel obviously is really clean. You should have a really clean wheel because that really helps you to minimize clay dust. So I always like turning something on this wheel and I sort of haven't cleaned it properly. So I'm just going to give it a clean. Let's just give it a clean. So I'm using a sponge. It's a bit soft actually, this sponge to do that with. So I'm just going to use a cloth. This is just a normal cleaning cloth I got from the supermarket. Just try and keep my apron out of the wheel. Don't really want it going in the wheel bit. So yeah, so I'm just cleaning the wheel head so it's nice and clean. Don't necessarily want it to be really wet because then it will make it more difficult for you to attach your ball of clay to the wheel. But never mind. It's better that it's clean. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to attach the ball of clay to the wheel. So potters probably have like different ways of doing this, but I basically just like throw it on and I try and get it in this middle ring here. So let's give it a go. And then what I do is I then if I haven't managed to get it in the middle ring, which that yeah, that's what happened then. I basically just then try and like I just then move it into the middle. So it kind of as much in the center as I can possibly do. And that will really help me to kind of center the clay. So this is the first stage of making a pot is basically centering the clay on the potter's wheel. And for this stage of the pottery making process, you want your wheel to be going like as fast as it possibly can, because that will be like the most easy um, sort of speed at which to be able to like make your pot. Okay, so let's just so it's a little bit disconcerting when you think I haven't actually attached this clay properly to the wheel and I'm making it go really, really fast. And yeah, I suppose it can like spin off, but the other thing to say actually at this point is that you can have the wheel going round in different directions. And I'm so sorry, I can't remember which is the kind of left hand way and which is the right hand way of going. But I basically have my wheel going round anti-clockwise and I'm left-handed. So I don't know whether that's the right way or it just feels good for me. So that could be the right-handed way of throwing a pot. I don't know, but the right-handed way of the wheel going round. But whatever way you want to do it, that's the right way. Okay. So just whatever way feels good to you, that's the right way. Um, okay, so yeah, so it's going anti-clockwise. I've put it on really, really fast. I'm going to try not to like get this headset cable in the pot. So in the clay. So what I'm doing now is the first stage of making a pot is you want the number one is you want to attach this piece of clay really, really well properly to the potter's wheel. And the way you do this is literally, so I'm always taking water, 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 water on my hands, always having water. If in doubt, add water to your hands. What I'm doing next is I'm anchoring my arms onto the rim of the the potter's wheel, so like the kind of the plastic base, and this will give you a really strong stance from which to like make your pot. Okay, so a little bit close. Sometimes you're just like not quite in the right place. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to just push down, and you can see that that was too dry on my hands, so it's throwing the pot off a little bit. So you just always want to have like water, water, water. And what I'm doing now, the action for this is literally just pressing the clay down because I want to attach it on the potter's wheel. You can see that at the base of the pot, it's all kind of wiggly, and that means it's not centered. And then the top is like kind of not quite as off center. So the next stage is to center the clay. So again, we're going to need water, 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 water. Again, so every time, if in doubt, just keep on dipping your hands in the water, doing a move, dipping your hands in the water, doing a move, and then we always want the wheel to be going like as fast as possible. So the thing with centering is what we're doing is we're going to bring the clay up. So it's kind of like a squashing motion with your hands and a kind of rising squashing motion. And then we're going to bring the clay down again. And this helps to like center the clay. It just helps it helps the clay to sort of move around the wheel in such a way that then you can use your hands, your really well anchored hands, your anchored arms to like center the clay on the potter's wheel um, as you're kind of bringing the clay up and down. So I'll show you what I mean. So first of all, to bring the clay up a little bit, you don't have to do loads and loads. Like if the clay feels pretty centered, that's pretty centered actually. But let me just show you what it would be like to so I've brought the clay up a little bit and then bringing the clay down, I usually have one hand on the side of the piece of clay and then the other hand is kind of across the top, kind of squashing it down again. That's how I like usually bring it down. Okay, so we've brought it down. You can see there is a wiggle in that clay, so it isn't fully centered, but I'm going to bring it up again. Um, and like that's pretty centered. This is the thing, you don't have to have it like absolutely perfectly centered to make a pot. I'm just going to do it one more time. Just bring it down. The clay will want to just go into like a wiggle. Just trying to stop it with my hand and bring it up again. Okay. So that's okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll start making our pot now because let's just go for it. It's not perfectly centered. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to wipe my hands because I want my hands to be like really, really clean to kind of do the next stage. It really just helps me kind of see what I'm doing. Another thing you can do is you can wipe any sort of sometimes like you've had a really difficult time centering and it's taken ages of up and down, and you know, then you can have quite a lot of like slip on your piece of clay that's ready to kind of get made into a pot. Um, so again, you know, you can just use a sponge or use a cloth just to wipe down your piece of clay. So the next stage is we're going to be sort of starting to open the clay out. Okay, so I'd say that yeah, this is kind of like stage one is centering, stage two is kind of opening the clay out, and we want it to be going a little bit slower. The wheel to be going a little bit slower. Okay, so I've done the wheel's probably like half speed or something. And what again, I'm getting water, water, water. I'm anchoring my arms, and I'm just going to use my thumbs. I've got my hands like cupped around the pot, around the piece of clay on the wheel. It's not the pot yet, but then I'm going to just push my thumbs in the top, and I'm just going really slowly. The clay doesn't want to go too fast at this stage, and I can actually feel that this clay is not centered. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be really strong with my arms, and I'm going to um, like carry on kind of pushing the clay down and out, and I'm going to be really strong and anchored in my arms, and that will that will try and get rid of I'll try and get rid of the wiggle, the kind of uncentered aspect of it as I'm doing that. So I'm adding more water, and at this point you can actually like sort of use your hands to drip water like over the pot because you just want it to have loads and loads of water. Now I think this is going a bit fast, this wheel. Sometimes you can just feel when you feel a bit like, oh gosh, it's a bit out of control. I think sometimes it's going a bit fast. So I'm just going to like, I mean, some potters can make pottery really, really fast. But I'm really slow. And it takes me absolutely ages. But I think if I practice more, then I would get faster and faster. So at this point, we've opened up the clay out a little bit, and we've got a kind of little, bump in the middle where, like, I've been pushing my thumbs down, and I've got a little, like, a little mini mountain in the middle. I just want to flatten that out, so I'm just using my thumb to flatten that out because I want to know how thick the base is. And then what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to kind of dig in to the base of the pot and bring that out. So digging in, I'm using my hands to dig into the middle of the pot. Now I'm glad I slowed the wheel down because I think it was going a bit fast. So I'm anchoring my arms. I'm pushing my hands down in the middle of the pot. I'm just using all that clay at the base. I'm trying to center it as I'm doing it actually, because it's got a little wiggle in the base. And I'm basically just pushing my hands into the base of the pot to kind of start to make a kind of more like a flat base and and a kind of cylinder type shape. So again, I've got a little mountain in the middle, and that I'm just going to flatten that out with my hands. So you can see there's some water pooling in the middle of the pot, and that is actually at the moment that's fine because um, we can get that out with a sponge in a bit. So okay, so um, we've got a lot of clay down at the bottom. We're starting to go up with the sides. Before we go up with the sides too much, we want to get rid of some of that heaviness from the base. Okay, so again, I'm just digging my fingers into the base of the pot on the inside, and I'm just getting rid of some of that clay, and I'm pushing on the outside at the same time, and that's thinning the whole pot out, and it's enabling me to thin out that pot. And at the same time, I'm rising my hands, I'm raising them up. So I'm basically thinning out those walls and raising the clay up. Um, I still think this is going a bit fast for me actually. So I'm going to slow down the wheel. I'm going to get rid of some of that water in the middle because I can't really see what's going on in the base. So I'm just sponging out the water. So I can see there's another kind of mountain forming in the in the base of the pot, and I don't want that. I want it to be flat. Just going to get rid of some of this slip. Um, Okay, so for that, I was using a viscose sponge, which I just got from the supermarket. It's like a sort of cleaning sponge, and they're really good because they're really soft, and they're brilliant to use on the potter's wheel. So I'm going to push again, trying to get rid of this mountain in the middle of the pot. We want it to be really nice and smooth in the middle, but at the same time, we do want to get rid of some of this base here, some of the clay we've got at the base. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to pull the base out a bit whilst supporting it the other side with my other hand. And then I want to flatten again the base. So this is kind of just like, this is the bit that takes me a really long time. I'm kind of shaping it, I'm pulling it up, I'm shaping it, and pulling it up. I've just had my brain has just created this thought like other potters will be doing this so much quicker than you. Thanks, brain. Yeah, I know, but this is just the speed I'm doing it at. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm going to thin out the wall. So I'm basically using my hands. So I'm feeling with my hands how thick the pot is at all the places. So the base, the walls, and I'm just trying to make it like nice and even all the way up. I need to get rid of some of that water again from the base. I can and maybe you can't see the base, but inside the pot is nice and flat now. But we're still got a bit too much clay in this kind of base bit. We've still got too much. Now, it's really important to say this actually that I didn't go down too far. Because what can happen, what used to happen to me all the time when I was first starting to make pottery on the potter's wheel is that I would push down the base, and then it would go through all the way to the wheel head, and that's like not ideal. Basically, then your pot is like kind of ruined. So always like leave. I've probably left about maybe like an maybe like an inch perhaps, which is probably slightly too much if you were because you're going to have to like sort of trim that off. But I just at this stage I do want to have quite a lot of clay like right on the base. I don't want it to be too thin on the base. So I'm going to do another round of digging my hands into the side, and then drawing it up again. And I'm going a bit fast. I'm going to slow the wheel down a bit more. So this, I'm going to have the really slow for this because I'm actually now kind of shaping the pot. So suppose this is kind of like stage 3. Now I'm resting my hands on my legs. So although they're not on the wheel side, they're anchored on my legs, which are anchored on the wheel side. And that's just because I don't want to go down like too low. I don't want to have to like lean right over this pot. Okay, so this is the part where we want to be kind of just shaping the pot, making sure we've got it the right size. So I'm going to do a size check here. So I'm going to stop the wheel for the size check just in case I sort of, it's just a bit easier than accidentally drop the ruler in. So, okay, so it's 11 centimeters wide, and that's kind of what we were going for, wasn't it? But it's only like 9 centimeters high at the moment, and we kind of wanted 13, didn't we? So a little bit to go on height, and I think I've probably got enough clay to kind of keep on bringing it up. So what I'm thinking about in my mind at this point is that I want the pot to be quite thin, not too thin. I want it to be even side, so I don't want a really thick base and a really kind of thin rim. I want to be trying to every time I bring the clay up, I want it to be like the same thickness all the way up the pot. And I've seen potters actually, like when they're practicing, like this was an evening class I went to. They would make a pot, and then they would literally just cut it in half, and then see the kind of the wall and whether the wall was kind of like the same thickness all the way up and like how thick the base was and stuff like that, because that's a way of like you obviously you're cutting your pot up, but it enables you to like see kind of like the thickness all the way up. So that's what we're aiming for, even thickness. We want 13 centimeters of height. I'm going to start the wheel again. I had to stop for a little tea break then actually, because my video software only lets me record 30 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. So I had to have a little tea break in the mug that I'm copying actually. But soon I'll have a mug and my own mug that I'm going to be um, drinking tea out of. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just putting some water on the pot. We want it to be properly wet. We want our hands to be properly wet. So again, we're going in with the water. I'm anchoring my arms. I'm going to anchor my arms actually to the side of the basin of the potter's wheel. I'm just feeling how much clay is at the bottom. We've got quite a lot of clay there, so I'm going to just dig in and do another round of bringing it up. I can feel it's quite thin actually, this pot already. So we'll see how we get on with making it 13 centimeters high. So the pots will naturally want to kind of um, they'll naturally want to go out a bit like a bowl. And what we've got to do is stop that from happening, because I guess the central fugal force, central the force is trying to make the pot, go out like a bowl, but we don't want it to do that. We want a nice cylinder for this mug. Just going to clean down again. So that is just something to be aware of, that pots always try and go out. We don't want it to do that. Want it to be going in. So we just got to be conscious that we're not like letting it go out basically. So every time I bring it up, I'm just conscious that I want the shape to be straight. I want to take some water out of the base. We've got quite a lot of water in there. I don't want too much water in the base. I don't want to stress the base out with having loads of water in. I can feel that the clay is starting to get to the point where it's going to be. I mean, this clay it's quite difficult to throw with actually. It's like very smooth and kind of floppy, I guess, is like, I don't know whether that's the term, plastic. So basically, it's very easy to overwork it. So if I'm kind of moving it around too much on the potter's wheel, it will then kind of at some point just kind of flop. And we really don't want that to happen, because then the pot will be like kind of ruined. So I'm going to just take another measurement actually, just stopping the wheel, take another measurement. Right. So we've got kind of. So it's like kind of 10.5 centimeters wide, and then we're only up to about 10. So I'm gonna, in terms of height, this always happens. It's quite hard to make high. Well, I find it hard to make high stuff. So the wheel's going quite slowly. Again, I'm just wetting the pot. Might seem really weird to kind of wet the pot and then take all the water out again, but you do need to keep on wetting it, and then it is not good to have like standing water in it. So I can feel there's a bit of clay at the bottom. So I'm going to just really dig in now and try and get that clay up from the bottom. So I'm just pressing evenly on both sides. I can feel this clay. really needs to stop being on the wheel soon. It's really smooth and it's kind of, I can feel that it's about to get overworked. And that's just from like experience of multiple times overworking pots and then flopping on the potter's wheel. So I've made a real effort there to get it up higher. So, but you can see the shape isn't quite the cylinder that we were going for, but that's okay. It's come out a little bit at the top of the rim. Actually, maybe that's quite nice. I'm not sure. Right, let's just have another little size check. Um, so now we've got, so the rim has obviously gone out a little bit. So it's about, yeah, about 11 centimeters high, 11, a little bit over 11. Okay, and we're up to 11 centimeters. Sorry, so it's about 11 centimeters wide and 11 centimeters high. Now, this is tricky. I think I'm going to do maybe one more pulling up time. And then we're going to go on to stage 4, which is kind of the very finishing off stage, which is kind of like finishing off the shape, like the rim, making sure that's all smooth. So I'm going to clean down with my sponge again. And that's just because I want to be able to see exactly where we are. My potter's instinct is telling me to stop, actually. I'm going to just bring it up one more time. Famous last words. Potter's instinct is like, It's going to be overworked. You sort of just get this feeling you're like, right, I need to stop now because it's going to get ruined. But let's give it one more go. And what I'm going to do now is just gently kind of try and make sure all the walls of the pot are even. Okay, I definitely need to stop there. I can feel it's getting a bit thin. So yeah. Okay, so there we are. We've got a cylinder. Let me measure it. I'm just going to take the water out the base. Then what we'll do is we'll do a very tiny adjustment to the rim just to kind of like even it out, make it nice. Sort of imagine like drinking from that rim. The rim is also gone a little bit like ever so slightly off center. So right, let's just give it a measure first. You know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. We can just kind of. So we've ended up with a pot that's 11 centimeters wide. Let's just stop it. And then, okay, and then about 12 centimeters high. So that's not too bad. I'm going to stop there because I can just tell it's it's about yeah it's about to get overworked and flop over. So okay, so you can see that you might not be. Hopefully, you can see on the video. It's a kind of um ever so slightly off center, like the rim is kind of a bit like wiggly, it's a little bit oval. We can kind of try our best to fix that at this stage. So again, we want water. And what I'm doing is I'm going to just gently pinch the very, very rim of the pot. And then I'm going to use my other finger to kind of just very gently press down on the very rim. And the idea of this is that I just want it to try and shape the rim in a way that's kind of nice for if I was going to like drink from it. And I'm just going to press my finger into the side of the pot as the wheel's going around. So this is at this point it's going really, really slowly. This is kind of probably like could call this like stage 4. This is the kind of shaping stage. Um, and I just want it to be like I just want the rim to be nice. Not sharp. I want it to be nice and smooth. Some potters use like I've seen people use a plastic bag for this like kind of bit. You can use some potters use chamois leather. I don't use leather in my pottery, but you can also use a sponge or a cloth, and you can just so literally I'm just pinching it with a sponge, just gonna like, and it's just smoothing the rim, and you get a really beautiful like smooth rim shape. This is your opportunity to kind of like make a really beautiful shape. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to use this sponge and just press on the inside of the pot very gently because I just want to make it to go out a little bit, and then I'm gonna also just smooth it on the edge with a sponge, just all around the edge, just all around the side of the pot, just to kind of get it really nice and like smooth. Um, okay, I feel like I need to just do the rim a tiny, tiny bit more. And I just want to make it go out a little tiny bit more at the base. I just got this. What I'm gonna do is just use a sponge actually just to push inside the pot at the base bit. Just want it to go out a tiny bit, just not quite the right shape. Just want it ever so slightly wider at the base. And again, this will thin it out, so we've got to be super careful that we're not like overworking it. Right, it just needs a little tiny bit more. Can just see there's a little bit more. I just wanna, okay, just get it a little bit wider at the base, then you can push it in. Now, a lot of potters will be like much quicker than me doing this. This is just kind of, yeah, I like that. I want it to be a tiny bit wide on the base. And there's no water in the middle of the pot. And I just want to just shape the rim a tiny bit more. It's going a little bit fast. Slowing the wheel down to its very slowest. Just putting a little bit of water on the rim. Just want the rim to be a little bit more sort of splayed out. So like if you're kind of drinking from it, I want it to be a nice bit to drink from. And just I'm just going to clean off the rim with a sponge. At the same time, just shaping it a tiny bit more. Accidentally splayed it out then. Okay, yeah, that's good. I like that. I like that. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to stop the wheel. I'm going to leave it there because I think if I work that anymore, then I'm going to probably end up breaking it. There is a point where you're just like, "Nah, I need to stop." Okay, so the next thing I need to do is I need to cut the pot off the wheel. And this used to freak me out this bit because I was like, oh, I've spent ages making my pot, and now I've got to somehow get it off the wheel. And I have seen potters actually cut a pot off the wheel and then like lift it. But what I learned to do is just slide it. So I actually need to get a nice amount of water on the wheel head, and then I'm going to cut. Using the cheese wire, and then I'm going to sort of flush the water underneath the pot, and that kind of makes a kind of almost like it's like surfing on a film of water. Then you can easily just slide the pot off with kind of like minimal disruption of the shape of your pot. Especially if you're using a clay which is really soft, you kind of just, yeah, you kind of, this is quite a good method of doing it. Okay, so what I need to do is I just need to first of all flush some water onto the wheel. So I'm just getting a sponge and I'm just squeezing it out onto the wheel head and getting like a nice pool of water there. And I'm going to take my cheese wire and I'm just going to try and go as close as I possibly can to the wheel head. And I'm going to so I'm pushing down the wheel head and I'm like, um, pulling pulling the cheese wire through to try and flush a bit of water through there. I've just realised there is actually another stage which some potters do, and that's when they're very finishing it, their final finishing off. They can kind of use the wheel sort of going around and the pot still stuck to the wheel to kind of cut a little bit of clay off the like round where the very base of the pot is, and that's if you're kind of not really going to trim it that very much. You can literally just kind of trim it. That's a sort of quicker way of doing it, more efficient, is if you just kind of take a tool like a wooden tool or something, and as the pot's going around before you've cut it off, you can kind of just remove some of that clay from the base, and that's like a good way of kind of making a nice neat base. But we're going to trim this pot, also called turning, um, like the leather hard stage, and so I don't really need to do that. But yeah, you can definitely do that. Yeah, it kind of probably would make it easier to trim actually as well if you got rid of some of that clay. Literally just, yeah. Okay, so um yeah, literally just take a tool and just kind of, yeah, just remove some of that clay around the base. But obviously when the pot is moving and it's still stuck to the wheel, when the wheel is moving. So I'm cutting with the cheese wire again and again. And I can see that pot is now starting to move off the wheel, and that means I know there's enough water underneath the pot. It's just slid off a little bit. The thing with this wheel is that the sides of the wheelbase are actually higher than the wheel head. So I actually have to take the wheel basin apart. It comes apart, and that's how I slide the pot off. So hopefully you can see this. I'm going to just flush some. I actually have a tile here. Tiles are really good because they're really, really flat. And I don't really want to use the glazed surface of the tile because it's kind of, the pot will probably stick to that. So I'm going to use the back of it, soaking up loads of water. It's like kind of just like an earthenware tile. You can use a piece of wood for this, a piece of slate, anything that's flat. Slate's really good, but it's sometimes little bits of slate come off. So can see that it just keeps on soaking the water in. So kind of just want to saturate that as well. And then we're just going to slide. This is quite hard to do with like a headphone cable. Okay, I can feel it's stuck again. So I'm just going to get the cheese wire, go one more time. We want it to be sliding off. Hopefully it's going to slide now. Yeah, it's sliding with minimal squashing. There we go. Kind of. And that didn't really work very well because now it's on the edge of the pot, but that's okay. On the edge of the tile. There we go. Okay. Okay. So didn't work quite as well as I wanted it to. It kind of stuck there, but so maybe the glazed surface would have been a bit easier. That's the first time I've used these tiles actually. Normally I do use like a slate or a piece of wood. So yeah, so there we go. We've got our pot. It's on a tile. That's all good. Don't worry about any bits that have kind of gone wrong around the side, and like on the base we've got bits which we've kind of bodged and stuff. But that's absolutely fine. We can clean that up when we turn the pot, and that's what we're going to do at the next stage. We're going to turn the pot, we're going to add a handle, but we need it to be leather hard before we do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in a plastic box, um, which just like a plastic storage box I just got from like the supermarket, and then we're just going to store it in there until it's leather hard. So let's put it in there, put the lid on, and then we'll come back to that pot. Might do in a few days. I don't really know how long it takes. We just need to like maybe check it every day just to see how it's getting on in terms of like the dryness of it. Um, yeah, and then what we're going to do is clean up the wheel. So that's really important because we don't want the wheel to be like we don't want the wheel to produce any like clay dust. So that's we're going to just clean that up now. And the really easy way to clean up the wheel. So I'm just putting the wheel back together, and you can just have the wheel going really fast. You can just use your finger to like get any bits of clay off from the wheel, um, and then we can just use a cloth and clean it all up. Thank you so much for joining me on that episode. And if you want to find out more about eco friendly pottery, head over to the Oxford Clay website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. Can't wait to see you there.